Henry Russell Hitchcock, better known as for writing that helped to define modern architecture, published in 1947 the article The Architecture of Bureaucracy and the Architecture of Genius. In this article, he defines the two main tendencies how architecture offices operate in the practice of a discipline. In the first one, bureaucratic architecture, all buildings design are based on a large-scale architectural organization, which proposes an assembly line of architectural production. The case of Albert Kahn supports to illustrate how these organizations could be perfectly addressed by an organizational genius, but making clear their limitation on certain projects such as public housing or community emphasis. On the other hand, in the architecture of genius is a creative individual who functions as architect rather than as an anonymous member of a team. Some of them are the ones who create the prototypes that set the standard in the next stage of bureaucratic development. However, most of the time, large-scale projects used to be difficult to manage and supervised by geniuses, needing to set up a sort of makeshift pseudo-bureaucratic organization. In this way, and after analyzing this contrast, Hitchcock suggests to balance the low level of plastic interest of bureaucratic architecture with genius buildings. At the same time, he demands to rise community structures into the world of art by means of competitions or commissioned to architects of proof individuality.
In order to respond to Rem Koolhaas' theme of absorbing modernity, OfficeUS, the U.S. National Pavilion at 2014 Venice Biennale, launched as a workspace that will research 1,000 export architectural projects created by 200 U.S. architectural firms since 1914. The partners and researchers of OfficeUS will try to use 25 critical issues to see how U.S. architecture practice has shaped architecture worldwide, and how international events have impacted American architecture. Focused mainly on exported architecture, the projects vary from nuclear plants to U.S. embassies, residential typologies, and museums. All of them are shown on the pavilion's walls within research booklets available for partners and visitors to use. OfficeUS consists of many different elements, such as OfficeUS Partners, OfficeUS Repository, OfficeUS Issues, etc. All of them together show the operational and spatial logic of the architecture office. The partners and their collaborators in Venice try to construct an agenda for the future production of architecture. The publication OfficeUS Agenda serves as a catalog for the exhibition. It has 3 main sections: expertise, exchange, and export, and each of them respond to an important narrative. Hi, Felipe. I remember last time we discussed about the argument Hitchcock made in the article, but there is some points I don't really get it. For example, Hitchcock suggests to balance the low level of plastic interest on bureaucratic architecture with genius buildings. At the same time, he demands to raise community structures into the world of art. Do you think this claim has already solved today?
Well, Shixiao, as we already know, Hitchcock's article was written during 40s. Today, I consider that the architecture of bureaucracy in North America and many other parts of the world have been balanced definitely by the presence of this sort of genius architects to improve the performance and aesthetics of the buildings. For instance, today, some architects, some of the oldest bureaucratic firms in the United States, produce now a broad diversity of the most amazing and complex buildings on the world, led by groups of multidisciplinary and selected professionals. The idea of one architect who creates prototypes to set the standard in the next stage in the bureaucratic development has definitely changed to mega offices who add many geniuses to create prototypes innovate in all the elements that could compound a design in many scales in order to use them in further projects. Arup, the largest firm of consulting engineers and with office in the United States, started supporting architects' projects to solve and calculate the most ambitious and risky structures. But now they also invest in geniuses to develop new technologies for building constructions.
Oh, I have got it. So, in that way, what do you think about architecture of genius?
In the same way, I think I think it happened in the other way. The architecture of genius has also evolved in a kind of multidisciplinary partnership leading by star architects needing for a bureaucratic management, considering its deserved reputation, you know. The case of Frank Gehry, for example, who initiated his frustrating career as kind of artist, architect, today is joined by partners who not only support his office administration, but also develop new technologies and services to design very complex form buildings. In this way, the idea of famous genius is exploited to get technology able to push architecture and design boundaries. In addition, nowadays, this kind of firms is always involved to competitions related to community-relevant buildings such as museums, parks, theaters, etc. In other words, what Hitchcock claimed almost 70 years ago, I think it is fulfilled now.
Oh, thank you so much, Felipe.
But well, Shixiao, I have also some inquiries for you based on the discussion we made before. I really want to know some of your opinions about OfficeUS. As we all know that the 2014 Venice Architecture Biennale is directed by Rem Koolhaas and centers on the theme absorbing modernity. So I'm wondering, OfficeUS, as part of that exhibition, do you think that makes sense to respond to Koolhaas?
Well, actually, I don't think OfficeUS really respond to Koolhaas very well. I think it may just respond to it very superficially. For example, they focus on the history, they do some research about the architecture projects in the last 100 years, which may kind of respond to the fundamental idea. However, if you talk about modernity, I think nobody can deny the fact that modernity is almost created or produced by the United States. They are the producer of modernity, and during the past 100 years, they exported modernity to almost every continent of the world.
So you mean they're producing, exporting, but not absorbing?
Yes, kind of. I don't think the United States are absorbing modernity. I think the countries they exported to are absorbing modernity, because but not the United States. For some countries, even their national identity has seemingly been sacrificed to modernity. Just take Beijing as an example. If you take a photo in 1914, the urban texture and the architecture style will clearly reflect that this is Beijing, not other cities. But 100 years later, because of the strong influence by modernity which exported by the United States, if you take a photo out there, you can hardly recognize where it is. The city already loses its architectural identity. You might even think this is an American city.
Well, that's true, but it seems like you are criticizing this kind of export, aren't you?
No, not really. Actually, what I'm trying to say is that within the last 100 years, the United States were obviously always producing and exporting modernity. It is not convincing for me to think that they are also absorbing modernity like other countries. And what is really ironical is that I think even the OfficeUS is also a kind of export, by which they show the projects they have done during the last century so as to continuing export their architecture and modernity.
Okay, Shixiao, I have really enjoyed this conversation about OfficeUS and Hitchcock, and I really appreciate your opinion. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Actually, I hope we can continue this kind of conversation in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.